This is the 2021 Lexus IS 300 all-wheel drive. It just went through a major refresh because it had to. Remember, this little Lexus competes against giants like the BMW 3 Series, the Mercedes-Benz C-Class, and the Audi A4. To compete with cars like that, you gotta look the part, you have to have great technology, and you have to drive really well. Does it? Let's find out. It's hard to believe, and I feel really old saying this, but the Lexus IS has been around for 20 years. Since Lexus began selling cars, they've offered up the ES, which was priced like a BMW 3 Series, but it was a front-wheel drive luxury barge, not a sports sedan. So to really compete with BMW, Lexus began selling the IS, a small rear-wheel drive sports sedan. The problem for the IS is it doesn't just have to go up against those 3 sedans we mentioned earlier. There's a lot of new upstarts in the segment, 2 of which we have named the MotorTrend Car of the Year recently, the Genesis G70 and the Alfa Romeo Giulia. So you can see why Lexus had to refresh the IS. The first part of the refresh is, of course, design. Maybe I'm getting soft, but as a dyed-in-the-wool Lexus spindle grille hater, I think this face looks pretty good. I mean, look, all the funky elements are there, right? This is a spindle grille. You've got the angry headlights. You've got these weird fishhook daytime running lights, lines that start and stop for no reason whatsoever. However, it all works. It looks pretty good. Obviously, I'm getting soft. Come down the side though, you can see the best part of the redesign, and the line work on this thing is just great. The surfacing's great. You know, you have these 2 lines which just flow into the front wheel. It makes it look athletic and aggressive, and nice job on the side of the car. Around back, one thing really jumps out at me, and you know, it's this rear diffuser. It's not a diffuser, it's a huge piece of black, which is there because, you know, the butt's too big, so they're trying to hide it. Black is slimming. I do like how the taillight goes all the way across the trunk there. It's a cool effect because it makes it look wider, that makes it look lower. If the refresh consisted of nothing but a redesign of the exterior of the IS, I think we can call it a total success. I'm gonna break the interior section here into 2 parts. Design and function. In other words, how it looks versus how it feels. And it looks great. I like this. It looks like a nice sporty cabin. I love the 2-tone, the black and tan. I think it looks great. I love this trim piece right here. The clock and the vents, very nice. For the first time in like 2 generations, Lexus has updated the quality of their maps. Their map now looks great. When we start touching things though, the story changes a bit. The actual leather is nice, and you know, the steering wheel is wrapped in leather, and this is a nice piece of fabric here, and this is some sort of rubber. And so's this. This is not leather, this is rubber, and they stitched it. Who put stitching into rubber? That's so weird to me. Speaking of touch and functionality, the touchpad doesn't function so well. And look, I've called this thing out in almost every Lexus review I've done featuring this touchpad, but it's just not accurate. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, here we are in audio. I'm gonna go ahead and jump over to phone, the next one over, and it just slid all the way over to projection. It's not good, especially when driving. That said, look at this. It's a touchscreen now, yay! Most of the problems I mentioned can be solved, you know, just by using the touchscreen here. All that said, this is a really nice looking cabin. In terms of performance, the Lexus IS is confusing, but bear with me. 1 car, 3 engines. Should you get the regular IS, you get a 2-liter turbo that makes 241 horsepower. Opt for all-wheel drive, that engine becomes a 3.5-liter V6, 260 horsepower, which is more, and that's great, right? Except that if you got the IS 350 F Sport, that same V6 suddenly makes 311 horsepower. That's 51 horsepower more. But you might say, well, okay, I'm worried about fuel economy, and obviously the car that makes less horsepower is going to get better gas mileage, right? And wrong. The 311 horsepower F Sport gets better fuel economy than the all-wheel drive car that makes 51 less horsepower, because a 6-speed transmission cannot return the MPGs that an 8-speed can. So, in terms of performance, I don't think the all-wheel drive IS is the one to get. As far as safety goes, what we do know is that the previous one had a 4-star front impact rating, so there is room for improvement. We also know that the IS comes standard with a bunch of active safety features that some of its competitors charge extra for, such as adaptive cruise control. How much? You can get into a Lexus IS 300 for just over $40,000. You want an all-wheel drive version like this one? Right around $42,000, and that IS 350 F Sport I was talking about is just under $44,000. Is the Lexus IS priced almost identically to the competition? Yes. If there's one thing I want you to know about the Lexus IS 300 all-wheel drive, it's that unless you really need all-wheel drive, it's not the IS 300 you want. I said in the beginning, this car has to do 3 things. It's got to look great, and it does. It's got to have great technology, it's getting there, and it's got to be really good to drive. And I think the performance hit you take by going with all-wheel drive, by getting that old 6-speed transmission, it just doesn't hold up that part of the bargain. There are better alternatives out there. To see vehicle rankings and a complete buyer's guide, please visit MotorTrend.com/cars.